Well, I think we're all there. You can all hear me?
Yeah.
Raise,
Yes.
raise your thumbs if you can hear me. All right.
Is there
Patrice,
what's the best way to make it lower?
I don't know. You have to hit your volume.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
So I have to read a speech here before we get going. All right.
Okay.
So, welcome to Getting to Know You. Tonight's panel graduated in 1971 and are celebrating their 50th year since graduating from Wantagh High School and walking off the football field and entering the unsheltered life that met them after they left. The goal of this show is to talk a little about your lives in Wantagh and then the paths you took once you graduated. I'll remind the panel to please mute when not speaking. Somebody needs to mute. I can already tell you. Unmute when you are speaking and feel free to respond to the things other people are saying. I may be posting some questions from the audience. This is live and will be available on YouTube forever, so don't give away any state secrets. Finally, no politics. We don't talk politics. Before we begin, the next broadcast will be June 14th with Mark Mock, Blade Juski, Linda Bills, Megan Holbrook, Larry Siegel, and Jan Stuber, who tried to get on today. So tonight's guests are, if you would just raise your hand when I call your name, Kathy Hughes, there, Patrice Levy, David Adatto, Marilyn Penn, and Bill Accomando. I've been told to call him Bill and not his official William name that his Facebook is under. Before I start the show, I wanted to and ask my questions. I took note of the years during which you were in Wantagh High School. And to me, these were perhaps the most tumultuous years to have attended the school. I found this that I want to put on the screen. And this is not meant to be a political statement, but you lived through the peak of the Vietnam War, Kent State, the deaths of MLK, RFK, protests in every major city and university, Stonewall, women's liberation, and rock music calling for the end of the old ways and acceptance of the new way of life, whatever that meant. In preparing for tonight's episode, it dawned on me how your class, in many ways, faced more calamity than my class did 4 years later. On that note, let's begin. So I'll take this off. And I'm just going to add Jan just for a moment so I can explain to her she's on the next episode. So hold on a second.
Hello.
I know you're there.
I see me.
Yeah, you're supposed to be on the next episode, if you don't mind. You're in the second week.
No wonder why Linda and I were so confused. But you had our pictures in this one along with Marilyn and everything, right?
No, that was for the second week because I advertised the second week when I do the first week. So I'm sorry. I apologize.
All right.
Don't be mad.
I'm just confused. Did you hear from Linda?
Yes, I did. And I explained to Linda. Okay. All right. So I'm removing you.
Bye, Jan.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Hey, Jan.
Well, interestingly enough, a good way to get started. I don't know any of you. I know Kathy's brother, and I know David's sister because we were in class and I sat behind Vicky in several venues. But I do know Marilyn. I've actually had in-person conversations with Marilyn because we worked together on the 2000 reunion. Was the multi-year reunion held in 2000, for which we prepared maybe 6 months worth, and about 2,400 people showed up at the high school. Anyhow, so let me get to my question. So, in no particular order, how about Patrice? Let's start with Patrice. What elementary school did you attend, and what part of Wantagh did you live in?
I went to Forest Lake School starting in the second grade. I had moved from Uniondale, where I went to kindergarten first and part of second. We moved to Wantagh in 1961, and we lived on Beltaw Avenue on the corner of Blue Spruce, where they eventually built the walk bridge. I think they built that in my senior year. It's kind of a blur, but I think they built that in my senior year. My house got egged all the time because we faced we had nobody was across from us, so a lot of kids hung out at that bridge and caused trouble. But our house was the target.
Okay, well, that's cool. No problem. And
Not for my father.
the reason I asked separate the elementary school and where you lived is a lot of kids lived on Holiday Park Drive, and they went to Sunrise Park School, which I never understood. But one of our spokespeople, one of our class members from 75, he said his house, Robert Berg, was the separating point for people who got shipped off to Sunrise Park School.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, things we learned.
Maybe that was later.
Yeah, it probably because the class I was in 75, but I graduated 74, was the largest class.
I apologize. Someone's at my door.
Go ahead. 74, well, 74 graduating class 75 was the largest class ever. So I guess they had to move people around. So, and make it even. So let's go to David. What school and then where did you grow up? What part of Wantagh?
Well, I actually moved to Wantagh and started fifth grade at Mandalay School.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to that, I was in PS 182 in East New York.
Where's New York? Manhattan?
East New York? No, it's Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. All right. I got it. So
You still don't want to go there.
your parents said, hey, let's move the kids to Wantagh?
Yeah, let's move to the country. That's what they said.
That's cool. So let's go to Marilyn. Marilyn, what's your answer?
Totally born right into my parents moved in 1951 to Wantagh. I think it was called Wantagh Oaks. We were on Jerusalem Avenue between Wantagh Avenue and Siemens Neck Road. And it was a huge influx of taking over the potato farm that all the people moving out after the war that were coming out to Levittown, these were the newer houses that were like the nicer than the Levitt houses. They were probably about 3 feet bigger. So I, being the second child, my parents already lived there. So I was born in the hospital in Brooklyn, always in the same house. And I went to Sunrise Park because there wasn't enough room in Beach Street anymore. So they bused us all the way down to Sunrise Park.
You did all sixth grades at Sunrise Park?
I sure did.
Wow. Because, I mean, the Lastmans were on your block, right? Steve Lastman?
Yes, she did too.
But her brother went with me to Beach Street. So I guess whatever they were trying to balance out.
Well, my sister started out at Beach Street and then they changed her to Sunrise Park. I was in Sunrise Park from kindergarten through with Kathy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, Bill, why don't we go to Bill? What's your story?
Mandalay, 6th grade only. And before that, similar to David, we were in Brooklyn. Parents moved out to the island, and I went to Catholic school in Hempstead for a few years, and then we moved to the lovely land of Wantagh. Upgrading, no doubt.
Wow.
David, I missed it. What street did you live on? We lived on Riverside Drive.
I was on Huntington Court. It was
Oh,
only
okay.
like two blocks long.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was right on near the corner of Hemlock, which is, I think, the
Right.
next street.
Yeah, you live near Brian McCullum.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And Steve Sutton and that crew.
Yeah.
So let's go to Kathy. I'm so glad to finally meet you.
Me too. Yes. Thank you so much for making copies of the yearbooks. That was really wonderful. You had it in time for our last reunion, and I'm sure we'll use it again. Um, I went to Sunrise Park. I did not move to Wantagh until the 5th grade and Mr. Presley's class. So I wasn't there the whole time with you, Marilyn. I can't claim that. And I moved into actually an apartment, which is the upstairs apartment from the Preller Insurance Company. When we first moved, there was a family there, but then the Preller family took that over as an insurance company, and it was always a strange thing for me because I lived in an apartment and everyone else lived in a house, and I always felt different. I always felt like, well, I really don't know if I should be in this town, kind of thing. So it was a little bit different growing up the way I did. Right across the street from the Rusty Hinge, as it turned out, so it was very convenient from that point of view. And I could walk to school as well. And I just to say one memory from Sunrise Park School and to tie it into all of the tumult that you were noting, I was actually remembered yesterday that yesterday was when RFK died. I don't know why that was in my head, but it still was. So it certainly made an impression on us. But everyone has their story of where they were when JFK died. And I was in the nurse's office at Sunrise Park School because they were doing your routine eye exam that you went down to the nurse for. And I was sitting there and they had the radio on because they always had the radio on. The secretaries would listen to whatever they did. And they came on and made this announcement about JFK being shot. And they basically forgot I was there. There went into immediate, what do we do? What do we tell the children? Do we send them home? And people were crying. And it was an amazing experience. I just sat there and nobody even noticed I was there until, way later. But I got to hear all the planning of how they were going to take care of the kids and what they were going to do about it. So it was something I'll never forget.
Wow. I do remember that day, but I was in kindergarten, I guess. And they did send us home. And I went home to my mom crying. So,
I mean, that was when you could just send kids home because there was somebody there. You couldn't do that now.
yeah. But I also wanted to talk. I know you said, I know the apartment where you grew up because I'm with Gene Preller. And,
Right.
but, down from Otto's, there were apartments and there were people who lived in those apartments. And I knew some people who lived in there. And I think they probably had some of the same thoughts that, oh, why, I'm in an apartment. I'm not in the house. So, but anyway, that was life. So, and your brother said the Rusty Hinge was across the street too, and I seem to recall that being my brother's favorite hangout as well.
Yeah.
Who graduated in '60.
We actually went to what took over the Rusty Hinge. We went there for the Friday night before our last reunion last year. It's a very nice, open, bright place now, which was completely not what it was then.
Yeah.
It
So
was
you
dark.
can you see the picture over my back? It's
Yeah.
yeah. That's Kathy Hughes, Patrice. Is it Levy or Levy? I can't hear you. Nope, still can't hear you.
Levy.
Levy. Okay. So I get $1 for everyone who talks while they're on mute, and I get $1 for everyone who doesn't go mute. So so we're going to start with Bill on this next question, and it's kind of a double-sided question. I've asked this, I'm pretty much staying in the form that I've done before, but it kind of combines two questions. So Bill, did you end up doing what you thought you wanted to do when you were in high school? In other words, talk about the path you took that brought you here today, 50 years after graduating.
Yeah, I'd say it evolved into exactly what I would have expected looking back on it. I was started in high school in math and science, and that's what I liked. And I went to college for math and science and got a math degree. But then I decided to get a master's, and I went into statistics. But at the same time, I liked medicine, so I went into after that. I decided to go and get a doctorate in medical statistics, otherwise known as biostatistics and epidemiology. So I would say it evolved. I always had the math kernel and just expanded it and basically went into a field of applied math where you take mathematical principles used in statistics and then apply them into programs and evaluations and looking at how different medications work, how programs work, setting up experimental designs to evaluate those things, and then carrying out the data collection and analysis. So, in high school, of course, I couldn't imagine doing clinical development, but that's what I ended up doing, which was really an outcrop of the whole mathematics thing.
So I think we did talk before, and you and I ended up kind of in the same career.
Yeah.
So I did population studies within my doctorate in public health. So, but I love stat. I People thought I was crazy for loving stat, but
Yeah. It's you either love it or you hate it. It can be extremely difficult and extremely rewarding if you have the math gene, is what I call it. What I really ended up doing was I got about 20 drugs through the FDA and approved. Some notable ones that you may have heard of, like Viagra. I was largely responsible for that one. Ones you may not have heard: Diflucan, Zithromax. I don't know. I'm a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I know all of that.
Yeah. I got like, and the last one was a drug called Yervoy. I worked with a little company, and that's one of the two drugs that Jimmy Carter took for brain cancer. So I worked with, was working with an investment banker on that. At this point, I had started my own company, and I was advising investment bankers and small biotechs. And my investment banker asked about, if they should give this tranche of money to this company, and I suggested that they do, but they needed to make these changes, this and that. And they did it with the proviso that the company would hire me to advise them. So I got to do the experimental designs of that program and basically send it off on its way. And that was quite rewarding. I lost my first wife to cancer, so it's good when you're able to help too.
No, that's great. That's great. And I mentioned Stonewall and HIV was the big thing when I was in graduate school, and just becoming a really big topic. And I actually taught a class called Men's Roles, and we were talking about HTLV at the time. We didn't even have a name.
Yeah.
It was just affecting LA and San Francisco and New York City.
That we got involved with that when I was at Pfizer, because the thing that was killing most of the HIV patients was fungal disease, cryptococcal meningitis, most notably. And they could only go through 2 or 3 treatments at the time. It was something called amphotericin B. And it brought you to the edge of death and killed the fungus, and then you would survive. But after 2 or 3 rounds of it, you wouldn't make it. So Pfizer had this drug called fluconazole, which was for onchomyosis, nail fungus, toe fungus, those kind of things. And we didn't have it approved. We were working on it. It was kind of a low priority. And we decided to repurpose it for cryptococcal meningitis, and we were very successful. Got it done in like a year and got it approved. And the FDA was delaying us on getting it approved. That's an interesting story. We had the gay rights group set up a march on the FDA. And right before the march, they heard about it. Right before the march, they quickly approved the drug so they didn't get marched on at the time. But that thing went through, and that saved a lot of lives because diflucan, which is fluconazole, you can take. It's like taking a piece of paper. It's virtually no side effects. So this would prophylactically stop any fungal diseases, and the patients would be free of that concern if they had HIV.
Well, that's great. One last question. Where do you live, Bill? Where do you live
Right now, I'm in Mystic, Connecticut. And that's a funny story. I was going back and forth between Wantar and Boston for my schooling, and I used to drive up along the Connecticut coast. So in like 73, 74, I picked out this place to live. And eventually, I got a job at Pfizer and was able to move here. And then I've always had a house here. I have a second house in Florida, this and that, but this is my home. It's been my home since 1986.
Cool. All right, we're going to go to Marilyn. So, Marilyn, you were in high school and you were thinking, boy, I want to work with radio and I want to sell advertising. And
Not even close. Had no idea that existed. But I have to step back. First of all, Billy, you're Billy to me. You're beyond impressive. I'm in awe, and I'm so impressed. So my story could not be any more opposite. You're on one end, I'm on the other. I had no idea what I wanted to do in high school, after high school. I wish that there would have been counselors to guide us. I was somebody, my mother said to me, oh, the best thing that a girl can do is become a teacher. So the last thing in the world I would ever do was become a teacher because my mother told me to do that. I probably would have loved to become a teacher. I ended up going to college because that's kind of what we did. I went for liberal arts because I was going to figure it out. I still had no idea what I liked. I loved to paint when I was still in high school, but my older sister went that route. Of course, she did become an art teacher because my mother was not going to allow her to go to college and not get a teaching degree. So I kind of let her do the art path. And after 2 years of college, and I had to work, we didn't have enough money, and I still had no idea what I wanted to do. So I came home and decided I want to be in advertising. I truly, if I look back at that point, I had no idea about what any of that was. And my career getting into radio totally evolved. The part that you don't know was before radio, I started working in ad agencies very much on the bottom rung, work my way up because it was where women could do something. So my pride of going from having no clue of what I could do. Oh, I also refused to take a job that was typing because once again, that was too much of a female stereotype. That was not me. I was a rebel before there were rebels, but I didn't know that I was a rebel. But eventually worked my way up. So my pride was that when I turned 30, became a vice president at an ad agency. But that day we were going to have a party and I called my parents on the payphone because that's all we had and said, Dad, I have a present for you. What's that? I became a vice president. And he's like, that's wonderful. What does that mean? I said, I have something fabulous for my resume. I don't get a raise, but every single male that got promoted with me all got a raise. But we were fine with that because we got the letters. But I also got my choice of a subscription to Ad Age or Ad Week. That was very impressive. So eventually it took me into radio sales because I used to buy time, got into radio sales so I could make more money, then eventually became on that end national sales manager and at different groups of stations. So at this point, I probably worked at almost every radio station in New York. One of my fun things is people that my coworkers who became my friends. If you go on my Facebook, it's like a bunch of them. You'll just see they're my friends. To me, that's who they are, but you listen to them all the time. So, so no, I did not do anything that I thought I would do in high school other than find a way to go and become somewhat successful.
That's cool.
So that's why Billy and I are sitting now in this screen on opposite corners.
Yeah. Do you know what 4A is? It's I just
Did you
attended.
say 4A?
Yeah, 4A. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Today's presentation at 12 was the former president, a female, the first female president of 4A. Advertising age, or I'm not.
Yeah. Who was
Yeah.
it?
Last name was Hill. She left 7 years ago. So
Okay.
she was just talking about the role for women and how it changed during her career, and it mimics what you're saying, because she's 63, and she said, when I became president of 4A, you know, people had to pay attention to me, and I was a serious player, and so she talked about helping women come up in the field.
Well,
So
everything you would see in the movies, and I forget the name of the TV show, but that really was life in ad agencies back in the day. The crazy, the drinking, the drugs, I mean, everybody I met at one point they all ended up divorced and remarried, and I wanted nothing to do with any of them because I was like, what's with these people?
yeah,
But it was like I would put on a suit to be in a meeting. And because I had to be in the same black or navy suit that the men were in, and you had the women had to do 10 times as much as the men. And once in a while, 1 out of 10 guys saw the value and would be smart and let us work harder than every guy and get the work done for them. But
yeah, yeah. Well, but you did it, and
I did. I
and
did.
I and you're friends with Malibu Sue. That's what makes you cool to
Well,
me.
what's cool about that is I didn't know she grew up in Wantagh.
Yeah,
Malibu Sue and I were friends, and when you talked about doing the reunion, you said something about her. So I walked down the hall. I was at WLIR then and walked down the hall into her office and said, I didn't know we grew up together. Obviously younger than me.
yeah, yeah. She would hang out in my neighborhood when we were growing up. So, um, so where do you live now?
About 3 months ago, I actually, after Wanto, then I schooled, then I lived in the city for a lot of years, ended up getting married, living in Long Beach, loving it, and just retired and moved to Florida 3 months ago. So I'm living the dream. I'm living in Port St. Lucie in a 55 plus community, and it's paradise so far.
Wow. Well, that's fun.
It
All
is.
right. So I'm going to go to David Adatto. It's your chance. So the question is, I'm sure you know what the question is. You walked off that football field and you walked into a career, or you went to college.
Well, it wasn't that as easy. I got accepted to the University of Rochester because I wanted to get into cinematography because I thought I could travel a lot. Um, my parents said, if we're paying for college, you could become an accountant. So I ended up going to CW Post. And after the first semester of CW Post, I hated accounting and I got into management and really didn't know what I wanted to do. Um, Film was always in my background, my heart. I remember seeing a lot of movies with these people traveling the world and seeing things and becoming buyers. So I got a job with Abraham and Strauss and I was there for 71 through 78. No, 75 through 79. And one day I was in my boss's office, and it was just before Christmas, and I said, just want to let you know, I'm resigning. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm moving to California. I'm going to get involved in the film industry. I had no idea I was going to do that. I told him I'll stay through inventory. I had like $3,000 saved up at the time. I called up my cousin Ron, and I said, Ron, I heard you just bought a new house. How many bedrooms are in it? He goes, why? I said, I'm moving to California. He goes, hey, you got a room. So I picked up my stuff, packed up my Volvo, just learned how to drive a stick. I drove cross country in a major snowstorm, had fun traveling with a couple of truckers, and moved to California. And getting involved in the film industry, if you don't know what you really want to do, isn't really a lot of fun. I did drive on the lower lot of Universal when I first got there. Didn't really like that much. And then I was at volunteering, painting sets and doing stuff. And I was at the American Film Institute one day, going to one of those coffee machines, and bought my 25-cent coffee or 15-cent coffee. And I bump into a guy behind me, and I spilled half my coffee. I said, no, don't worry about it. And I sit down. Next thing I know, this guy has another cup of coffee for me. And he sits down, looks at me, and I look at him, and it was Orson Welles. And he goes, so what are you doing here? I said, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. He basically said to me that if this is something that is in your heart and your love, and you don't care if you make it or don't make it, as long as you're doing it, then stay. If not, you're young enough, get the hell out. That night, I sent out 4 resumes to the retailers in Southern California: Robinson's, May Company, Bullock's North on Broadway. Following week, I had interviews for all of them. I got back into retail as an assistant buyer, and then became a buyer, and then became a divisional. And my dad was a cab driver in New York City. And in 1991, he called me up and said, hey, David, I picked up these 2 guys in front of the May corporate offices, and they're talking about what are they going to call Robinson's and May Company when they merge in spring. Well, I figured I better find another job, because I'm not going to stay, with Robinson's, because my counterpart was what we call mayonnaise. She was started in May Company and lived through May Company. She had a good business, like I had a good business. So I went looking around for different jobs. All my reps used to tell me I'd be great in sales. I always thought myself as shy. So I tried it, hated it for the first 3 months. By the end of the first year, I was the #1 salesperson for the company. And for 27 of the 28 years, I was the #1 salesperson for the company while having a VP responsibility. So it was fun. Now I'm on pulling something else together. So yeah, I have to keep busy.
Are you
And
in, are you in SoCal now?
No, in 98, my company said to me, David, we want you to sell national accounts because of my relationship. I said, I don't want to do that. I'm loving what I'm doing. They said, this isn't a choice. This is what you're doing. And I said, well, do I have to move back to New York, where corporate offices are? They said, no, live wherever you want. My wife said, oh, I love Scottsdale, Arizona. Let's move there. I said, the desert? What are you, crazy? I always lived by the water in Wantagh and then in Long Beach. Well, happy wife, happy life. It was the best move that we've made. And we're here now. Love Scottsdale. Have a great group of friends. And hopefully next year, my daughter and son-in-law will move back from Seattle to Scottsdale. So that's one of the things that we're hoping for.
Wow. I just got back from a whirlwind tour of Arizona and New Mexico.
Yeah, I
1600,
followed you on that.
yeah, 1600 miles. And I said the same thing. Where's the ocean? So, it was, Jean likes to hike. And she goes, when do we hike? And I go, well, you got to get up at 5 in the morning. And, when the sun comes up and make your way out. So,
No, that's only for 3 months out of or 4 months out of the year.
yeah, it's 107 degrees today
I
in
see you,
Phoenix.
Bill. I see
Yeah,
not that bad.
Bill prefers the humidity.
Yeah. Florida was too hot for me. I've been to Scottsdale once and I thought it was going to melt. It's just beautiful. I played golf there. It was a great time. But let me tell you, all we did was wrap ice things around our neck as we were playing.
Right.
It's really, really toasty.
Well, the rookies that are in Scottsdale, they're the ones in the emergency room with their vinyl seats stuck to the back of their legs. So,
Yeah. My grandmother lived in Palm Springs, and it would be 120 degrees sometimes when we visit her. And she'd still be wearing an old lady white or pink sweater with these pearl buttons. And then she'd come to Huntington Beach, and she would freeze to death. And she'd tell my brother, you have to take me back. I have to get back to Palm Springs. So
yeah.
anyway,
And
I appreciate your story. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, in regards to travel, Kathy, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple of years ago, you stayed at the same hotel that I did, I think like 2 weeks later in, was it Morea? You're on mute.
You're on mute. You owe me $1. You're still on mute. Now you owe me 2.
Well, if I wasn't talking, does that count?
Okay, only $1.
Only $1. Yeah, we were on our way around the world, and we stayed. I don't know how we found that. I guess I posted every day on Facebook just so our kids would know that we were still alive and where we were. And I had no idea so many people were following it. So I think you picked up and said I stayed there, and I went and asked the folks there, and they go, "Oh yeah, we remember him." So
yeah, he fell right around the pool a couple of times.
Yeah, so that was a fun trip. 17 countries in 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I've done that for work.
Yeah.
in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But David, I just wanted to let you know I chose a career that allowed me to travel. So that's all I ever wanted to do was travel. So
yeah,
and I chose public health and computers to do it in. Okay, I have a choice now between Patrice and Kathy. So, Kathy, if you'll be patient and go back on mute, let's go with Patrice, who helped organize this. She was the organizer of this event and of the next 4 episodes. So, Patrice, so it's that graduation day, and you wanted to be what?
Anywhere else. I
Okay.
wanted to be. I couldn't wait to get out of high school. I was a mess. I got in. I wanted to go to art school, which I did. I got into a few different schools, so I had a choice. But in my senior year, I disappeared into life with a graduated boyfriend, and I didn't realize at that time that our relationship was going to be ending soon. But I picked a school near enough so that we could still see each other, and that was Pratt in Brooklyn. And I'm glad I went there. We broke up within a month of me going there, but I'm glad I did. It was a great experience. I got a lot of good connections and met a lot of great people. When I went there, like Marilyn, my mother wanted me to be an art teacher so that I could make some money. And about a month into the curriculum, I decided I didn't want to do that. So I got a painting degree with a minor in fabric design. And I was a fabric designer in New York for freelancing for about 3 years. And I really, really hated it. Nobody really prepared me for the grueling dog eat dog atmosphere. I guess maybe like radio, Marilyn, I'm not sure. But it was not for me. I was not competitive in that way. I was more an artist and hippie, I guess. And so I got a real job that could pay my bills so I could continue to live in Brooklyn. And when I was 25, I went to one of our classmates' wedding, Fern Corwin, and I met her brother-in-law. And we fell in love and got married in 1982. And we were married for many, many years. He passed away when he was 64, and I was 64 also, suddenly. So that was a shock. But in the meantime, he was a very adventurous man, and he asked me if I wanted to be a ski bum. And I had never skied a day in my life. And I said, sure. And we moved, we got a van, and we traveled all over the country, and we went to different ski resorts, and we decided that our best opportunities were in the Aspen area. I got a job with Sport Obermeyer, designing their catalogs, and he got a job in a restaurant, and we made a life there. We lived in Snowmass for 20 years. Our son was born there. And while we were there, we went into the restaurant business, which is another direction that I never thought I would go. So there I am, a ski bum restaurant owner. And I learned the business. I learned accounting and office management. And we ran restaurants from the time we were 30 till we retired when we were 64. We sold our last restaurant. And 2 weeks after that, he died in his sleep. And so I was left semi-retired with no work, nowhere to go every day, and all ready for retirement and travel and by myself. So after a few months of mourning and getting a lot of help from family and friends, I moved to Erie, Colorado, which is north of Denver. And I love it. I'm also in a 55 older community. I think I'm the youngest person here because everyone came in here about 15 years ago. So they're all in their 70s and 80s, but everybody's great. And I love it. And my son just sold his business. He is retiring at 38 years old, which I find amazing. And I will never leave Colorado as long as he's here. And I'm very happy. And we have no ocean still after all these years. We've been waiting for California to drop off so that we get an ocean, but it never happens. I do want to say to Billy that I was in the classroom, and I don't know if it was homeroom or another class, but you always sat in the first chair because your last name was A. And I remember this was when you were kind of getting into some mischief at school. And a guidance counselor and the principal, I think, came in and whispered something to you, and you were looking around, and then you got up, took your books, and you were gone. And it turned out that they moved you to like I guess we had tracks back then. We had B track and A track. And this was a B track class that you were in, and they moved you to A track. And I think that changed your life because you were had some problems in junior high and ninth grade. Do you remember that day? Do you remember that day that they moved you to class? No, I do.
No.
I always think about it, like the things that happened to us that change our lives. So I'm glad things worked out for you.
I know I got into mischief. I remember that. But
You did.
I don't remember Yeah, I remember being in Mrs. Devereaux's math class, and that was one of the best experiences I ever had. So,
Yeah, it
and
might have been in that class. I'm not sure.
yeah, and she could have turned me around.
Yeah. But so
Interesting.
I've been in the restaurant business my whole life. I do accounting, which I was terrible in math, so who would have thought that? And I still paint for pleasure and play the piano, but I never really made it as a professional artist that I thought I could. I've sold a lot of paintings, but I don't want to. It kind of ruins my sense of enjoyment when I feel the pressure that I have to sell it to somebody, or they're not going to like it, or they're going to want this in another color or something. So I've been pretty happy for a kind of. When I look back in high school, I was kind of not really comfortable there. It wasn't for me. I was always someplace else in my head.
Yeah, I understand that. I think I was in the same place.
Yeah.
So, Kathy, let me see if I can. You should be able to see this screen. It's going to blank out the screen, and you're going to see this. Oh, actually, you can see that.
Yes.
Yes, Kathy Hughes, Susie O'Brien, Jan Stuber, Jim Maloney. Names I've heard of, but Kathy. I met Susie O'Brien because she lived in Annapolis, right? And
Yeah.
I gave her the yearbook or picked up a yearbook from her,
Yes. Right.
and she gave me apples. I remember that. So, Kathy, Gary said, turned out he was good in math and science, so he made a career of it. So there you are on the football field, and I've looked through, your trail. I probably know your trail more than anyone else that I've met at Wantagh. And you So tell me what happened after.
Well, I actually the yearbook was a hoot, and that was great preparation for things that I did in my life, but not as a career. Just the organization and the deadlines and organizing things and publishing. So that was really a useful experience. But actually, where I started my career is we all had those mothers that wanted us to do something like be teachers. I don't think my mother ever pushed me there. She was a teacher herself. My dad was a lawyer, and my dad wanted me to be a lawyer. And like you, Marilyn, I was a little bit of a rebel. So my dad wanted me to be a lawyer, so I decided I would not pursue that path. It was new for women, but I just didn't want to do that. My son is a lawyer, actually, so I think it skipped a generation. But what I loved when I was in high school was math. I did not want to be a math teacher. So when we were seniors, that's when they brought that ancient computer into our high school, and we had computer math class. It was like a semester class. And the thing was literally built the same year we were. It was 1953. So it was an ancient thing. It had a black, one of those old black typewriters with a paper tape thing bolted to the side, and you could write 6 commands and you had to do things. And so my term project was to basically do something you can do in a spreadsheet in one cell now, which is a lookup, a table lookup. But it took all semester to program it in this thing. I basically, I used to do, my grandfather had had a tax practice. So he used to do people's taxes, and I used to do people's taxes. So this would do a lookup of the New York State tax. If your income was between here and here, your tax is this. Everybody knows how that works, but it was very complicated to program it. And silly me, I thought, wow, this is really fun. You can actually make money, make a living being a programmer. So I went and applied to schools. At the time, the only school in the state of New York, and I needed the Regents Scholarship and the money to go to school because we had no money, was Union College, which was the only school in the state that had an undergraduate computer science degree. Most of the time, you had to be a math major, and then you could become computer science if you got a graduate degree. So I went to Union. And they had a wonderful computer science program. I was the only woman in it. In fact, it was the first year they accepted women at Union. So most of the women that went there were in arts and sciences, arts and English and languages and so forth. So I couldn't skip class. I was always the only female there. But it turned out to be a career where women were not precluded from it because it was a brand new career. So I stayed with that. After college, I actually got my master's and my bachelor's in computer science in 4 years because the college offered a program where you could do that. It didn't cost you any more money, so I could get an extra degree, and it cost me the same as just an undergraduate degree. So I went to work for GE the first 2 years. I lived down in Connecticut, not on the eastern end of Connecticut, GE Credit Corporation. And then after that, some of my classmates, in fact, a classmate whose house I am sitting in right now, we're still friends, and he ended up in the computer science arena as well, their college friend. Moved to a company in Massachusetts. And so I decided I wanted to live in New England. And so we moved there with the idea that, well, we have to live there for 6 months and work for this company for 6 months for them to pay the relocation. And then I'll go somewhere else because Digital Equipment Corporation was up there, and that's what I was going to do. But I ended up staying there for about 40 years. The company ended up being bought out in 2012, and I only lasted another few years after that before they got rid of all of the executives there. But we built systems, and we built information systems. The first 20 years I was there, we built a worldwide information system that tracked all of the maintenance and missions and reliability of the F-16 and the F-15 aircraft, and then the stealth fighter. So I got to work on a top secret program in building those systems to keep track of things. And then when that contract went away, the company was a very different kind of company in that they didn't let people go. They just said, go find some other work and some other business that you can bring in. So we took all of our software people that already knew a certain kind of computer language and found other work and we went into state governments. And so from that point on, the next 20 years, we built child welfare systems for states. Every state has to have one. And so they're all very similar. Our first one was in New Hampshire. Our second one was in Colorado, which is where I ended up meeting up with 5 or 6 of our classmates, including Patrice. So every time I was in Colorado, we would get together, and we actually still did that. We just did one. When was it? Last October, Patrice? I came out.
Yeah, Lori's house.
And to Lori Wiseman's house, and
we're wearing masks.
Right, with our masks on, right. So anyway, we built the systems for Ohio, Michigan, Tennessee, and several other states. And so I ended up doing exactly what I wanted to do. After a while, being an executive and being the vice president, and everybody works for you, and not being able to write programs anymore. Now that I'm retired, I'm kind of getting back into that with websites and things like that I'm doing. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and I did that. So that's another corner of the chart here.
Oh, that's great. Were you doing COBOL originally?
Oh, COBOL, Fortran, assembly language.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of Java later on, but mostly now it's just all the HTML stuff and the things that I'm the head of a civic association. We have a summer home on Nantucket, and so our neighborhood association needed somebody to, create their website or upgrade their website. I never did a website before, but I thought, well, this sounds like fun. So I did that, and other stuff like that I do. And I'm way too busy now. Right now, I have taken on too many things and said yes to too many requests, so I need to retire, I think.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I came out of the shower, my hair was soaking wet when we started this, so it's just starting to dry. And unbeknownst to me, I don't know if you remember, but you look at that picture, my hair was straight as a stick, and I wasn't one of the people that straightened their hair. But now my hair's curly. I have no idea why.
It just happens. My hair has always been curly. Yeah, I found a way to combine my public health and computers and intertwine it throughout my whole life, and be able to travel the world and work on contracts with USAID and other agencies and private companies.
Hmm.
It's been good, and
Well, I got to travel all over the U.S. for the child welfare systems and spend time in Nashville for a couple of years, Colorado a bunch of years, and I did international travel when I was working on the Air Force systems because the systems were F-16s were all over the world, and so we had to go do the training and so forth everywhere. So that was a lot of fun. I like travel, as you
yeah,
can tell.
yes, I followed you. I was definitely one of your followers. All right. Well, thank you for being patient. I appreciate it. So this is just a grab bag question. If any of you want to jump in and answer this question, because we're right at 8:30, just a bit short of 8:30, and if you don't mind staying on, we can. Um, I came up with this question because some people asked me to ask this question in previous weeks. They said it would be a good question to ask. So, if you could advise the person you were back then, what advice would you have given yourself, knowing that you're 50 years out? What Anyone want to jump into that question?
I'll jump in. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. You don't owe me a dollar.
I'm getting good at this. When I first saw you pose that question, I was thinking about it. And I was thinking, well, there's nothing you could have told me in high school because I wouldn't have listened. My mother told me lots of things that she was right about, but I didn't listen. Um, but then I was thinking about it more, and my curiosity was piqued. And I'm a list person and a saver. And I went into a box this morning of journals that I had kept in high school. And I don't know if it's narcissistic of me to have kept them, but I haven't read them since college. But I knew that maybe one day they'd be very interesting. And I couldn't believe the angst that I was writing about, the sorrow and the heartbreak and the embarrassment of being a teenage girl. I think I would just give myself a big hug more than give advice, that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Anybody
Um,
else?
yeah, to chime in, I feel exactly the same way. That it's more of I look back and I see things that were seem so important and who would accept me, and to just go back and be able to be yourself, and to be able to just know, like, just go do whatever you want to do. It took me a long time for me to get that. And I think kids are told that now. I know as a parent, anything I didn't hear, I was very encouraging to my kids to reassure them you don't have to follow whatever path you think you're supposed to do. Whatever it is you like, go follow it, pursue it. Like a
Yeah.
few of us seem to, at least Kathy, Patrice, and I, maybe it was the females, there was like this very specific direction that we were encouraged, where boys, it was a little more of, yeah, you can do that, and a little more choice rather than the boxes. So I also look back and I see there was so much stress and anxiety over certain things that were social issues that really shouldn't have been. This girl isn't nice to me, and I hate to say it, it was usually a girl thing. The girls that weren't nice, the girls that were nasty, like,
That
now
still is.
you get to who cares?
Yeah,
I'm glad we didn't have the internet when we were in school.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I'm glad my kids are just outside of social media. They're 25 and 27, and social media didn't play as big a role in their childhood as it does now. And I'm a I'm a helicopter parent, but I'm also a computer parent, and I kept them off their computers at night. So that was a big thing. Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll jump in a little bit. One thing that stood out to me thinking about that question was I was also I'm a man, obviously different than you three wonderful women, but I was discouraged by our guidance counselors and Patrice, junior high aside. Um, I guess they helped me in junior high, but in high school they were terrible. I had a list of colleges I wanted to apply to, and I was, oh, don't waste your money. You should be applying to this community college and this, and that's it. And that, and I applied to 11 schools. I got into all 11. And I remember going back down to the guidance counselor with my little list and saying, here, see you later. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I just ignored them. I mean, I got into Yale and Princeton and Tufts and, 11 schools. And I was told, you're wasting all that money. You should go to Hofstra or one of the state universities. Don't. So I was discouraged, and I don't know what that was about. It's kind of odd. I wish I had my junior high counselors, Patrice, in high school to have encouraged me, but I ignored them. I really did. And I stuck it in their faces. But
I don't remember getting help from that guidance counselors. I got my help from Mr. Chisholm, the art teacher. He was
Me too.
and he still is. He bought 2 of my paintings recently.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know what it was with those guidance counselors in high school, but I got my help from Coach Burns, who said, "Oh, you can do it. You just don't. Just do it. Just do it. Do. That was Coach Burns. So got to listen to the right people.
Will come to the. He came to our reunion the last time, and hope he can come this time too.
Yes,
Mr. Bennett also.
Bennett, yeah.
Wasn't he English teacher?
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember him one day coming in with an orange face because he had used some fake tanning stuff that he made himself with Mercurochrome and stuff. It was a riot. I liked it. He was a good guy.
Bill, I wanted to let you know, I graduated a year early. I just wanted to get out, like Patrice did. But I wanted to go to college. There was no doubt about that. And, the longer I went to college, my parents started saying, you should be out of college. What do you need a master's degree in? Oh my God, what are you getting a PhD in? You should be, on the street doing, getting your stuff together. And, my father was appreciative of it, later in life. But I hated school, and none of the counselors helped. Mrs. Heisler was the only one I liked, and she was very nice to me. In fact, David, your sister and I were in that class, Mrs. Heisler's history class together, and um, Mrs. Heisler just took a liking to me and said, "Glenn, you can just do whatever you want," and she was the only person who ever told me that.
Yeah.
So, I know it happened to women. Jean said to me after she was on this presentation 2 weeks ago, she goes, I never thought of a career. We weren't told to have a career. And she said, I just thought of having kids. And that was my career. And, I didn't have kids till I was 36. So I just, my career was the most important thing in my life until it wasn't. So, anyhow, did anybody else have anything to say about that? I have the last question. So, is there something about Wantagh that you continue to hold near and dear at this point in your life, 50 years later?
Jones Beach.
David, you haven't talked. Go ahead.
Well, I would say Jones Beach, when they built the bike path, that was like heaven because we were able to take our bikes down to Jones Beach and hang out there. It was a ball, a lot of fun. And I had really four good friends through high school. It was actually three. I was the fourth. It was Peter Galani, Mike Beck, and Bob Beck. And Mike Peck was, you know, from junior high to high school, we did everything together. I didn't. The only thing I did different was I wanted to get involved in the ski club. My friends didn't want to do that, so that was the first time I broke out of my shell and went skiing on my own, which was really an initial disaster because no one in my family ever did that. And I went up there to Holiday Mountain with corduroy pants, a fisherman net sweater. It was raining and wet. Everything got soaked. The zipper of my fly broke. I pulled my sweater down to my knees. That caked up with ice. And I remember that day we left early from skiing that day, and my parents weren't home when I got back to the high school. So I had to walk back from, I don't know how far it is, 3 miles, whatever, from the high school down to the Mandalay area. And with like my fisherman net sweater now down to almost my knees. It was fun.
Yeah.
And the other thing I remember, and Bill, you were probably part of this also, is in the summer, we used to go to the fields at Mandalay School and play baseball or football over there. It was always pickup games, and I'd never forget that. I was never good at sports, and I have to tell you the truth. Over the last 50 years, that hasn't changed. I'm still not good in sports, nor do I watch sports.
Yeah, I like that. I used to play in those They used to wear tags on your hip for the football on those fields. That was a lot of fun. What I liked about Wanto was all the water. I mean, Jones Beach was great. Where David and I lived, we had access on Riverside Drive right to the water. We could go out that way, go through East Bay, go over to the bay side of Jones Beach and run across and get to the ocean, and do it all by boat, all with the water, and Wanto Park with the water. So that, I think a lot of people, even if they leave the water, David, got their love for the water from Wanto.
Yeah, exactly. I learned how to water ski in Wanto. I don't even swim, and I water ski. So,
My parents had waterfront property, so right on the Belmore Creek there, the Riverside Drive, and so we water skied right in the backyard. Good times.
Yeah. Marilyn, did you have any takeaways?
It's interesting. The things that come to my mind probably could happen in any town, but for me, special was the house behind mine. They had two daughters that were the same age as my sister and myself. So they each became our best friends. We just assumed that's how it worked for everybody. And that when we grow up, we'll get married and we will live near each other. And obviously things don't work like that, but it's wonderful to say that here they became my other family, because back then you didn't go anywhere. You could just go wherever you wanted. In a sense, you went out, you played, you didn't have to have play dates. But there I was allowed to just go, knock on the door. It was my other home. As a matter of fact, I don't know if anybody would know them because they moved away when I was 12. So the older Shelley and Karen Rothenberg. But their mom, who was my other mom, is now 102. So it's just, for me, what becomes so special is I have these other, especially as I lost my whole family, that the people I still have are the rest of my extended family from there. I mean, I'm still friends with people. Some of my dearest friends were from middle school, still see them. But and it's interesting because you all say with the water, I do agree. We all love it. It was natural to us to be near an ocean. So me living in Long Beach was kind of like taking that wonderful part of Wantagh, and it was better because I literally walked to the ocean. It wasn't like my hitchhiking, which I always did, which if my kids ever did, it would be crazy. Walk to the entrance at Wantagh Parkway, you stick your thumb out. Like that was just a given. That's what we did. So being in Long Beach was pretty special. And I see this note somehow, but from Stephen Wolbing, you remember the Rothenbergs.
Yes, he does. Everyone has been leaving comments, but it's so much to pay attention to what's going on. It's hard
Oh, okay.
to put up the comments. So, Kathy, did you have anything?
Well, I think the yearbook was fun for me, and I'm still very good friends with all of my friends. Really, anybody who was a really good friend of mine from high school, it still is, and we're still in touch, and we still do things together and find ways to stay connected. And running the reunions every 5 years since our 10th anniversary has allowed me to really stay in touch with a lot more people or connect to people that I really didn't know in high school. And I think that we all have a common, it's just, we all grew up in the same place. We have so much in common just from the values we grew up with, the schools we went to, the teachers that we had, that even if they weren't friends with you specifically in high school, they are, they're friends. It's easy to get into a conversation. It's very comfortable. It's who we are. And no matter where anybody went, it's still like that. So I think that that was the situation. Just one little story from the yearbook. And if you look at the yearbook, Glenn, because you have it there, and if you look at all of the senior best pictures that are in our yearbook, there's cartoons, but there's also pictures. And what we did to take those pictures, we decided they were so boring in every other yearbook. We just all took the day off from school. Anybody who was voted as senior best, we took the Long Island Railroad into the city, and we went to the Museum of Natural History. And so those pictures you'll see are all taken from either the subway or on the train or actually climbing into the exhibits to take pictures and eventually getting thrown out. We pretended we were a field trip. And I think Jim Maloney was 18, so he was allowed to be our teacher.
Wow.
And we pulled it off, and I think you'll also notice in there's an absentee list that day. And that's all of us that were gone for this little jaunt to the city
Now,
for a yearbook
now
picture.
I'll have to look at it.
Yes. It's kind of subtle because we didn't want to, we figured by the time it got published, what are they going to do? Throw us out of school? It was graduation.
Actually, I have to interject one little thing. Kathy, thank you very much for putting together all of these reunions. And the last one that we didn't have that many people go to, but it was unbelievable because I think we got to an age and a stage, we really didn't even remember who, like, other than our good friends, every person from every different social aspect of our class
Right.
was together. And when we all got up that one, I don't even remember the song. Every one of us up dancing, holding hands.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most beautiful thing. It was, maybe it is that we didn't remember who we were friends with, but it was wonderful.
Yeah, we're going to do it again. So the dates are the 10th through the 12th of September. We're going to be at the Massapequa Elks for the Saturday night. We're going to be at the Nook for Friday night. That's on Sunrise Highway and Wantagh Avenue. We'll have a picnic, I think, at one of the parks, and we will put all of that information out really soon so people can make their reservations. And sorry, Patrice, you picked a date that's in October.
Yeah, I don't know if I can make it either. On a wonderful note, my daughter's getting married in November.
Yeah.
So I'm in New York in November and I'm in New York in August. but I'm going to see, once I see where whatever the hotel is, I'll see as far as if there are flights and car rentals, and because I would love to be able to do it.
Yeah, it was fun last time.
It was.
Yeah, the same hotel was booked this time. It was very hard because nobody was taking any bookings because New York was still closed.
Right.
And now they're opening up, and all the weddings that have been postponed. So we had like a little window to just grab something. So we'll see. We'll see.
Cool. I wanted to tell Bill and David, the water for me was baked into my chemistry because my father grew up on the water in Freeport. And so we always had a home to go to that was on the water, Randall's Channel, just over from the next channel over from the Miracle Mile or whatever they call it, Nautical Mile. And yeah, we skied in front of my grandfather's house and all that kind of stuff. And I live on the water, and I can't imagine not living on the water.
Me neither.
And when people say, you could live in New Mexico, Jean loved Santa Fe when we went. She said, "Oh, I could live there." And I said, "No, I could live on the water. That's where I'm going to live." So, anyway, we are at exactly just past 8:45. I truly appreciate you taking time out to do this. I know you have many things to do with your Monday evenings. We did start planning this about 6 weeks ago, maybe even longer. And you guys have a lot of real estate. You got all of June. So we've got 3 more of these presentations to do. I hope it helps you leading up to your 50th reunion. One of the strange things I get nervous before all of these. And, the fact that I only knew Marilyn is, some comfort. It gave me some comfort, but I was wondering how will I interact with people I don't know. But you do find commonalities, and the commonality is that we have Wantagh, and that we grew up there, and we can relate to that one thing if we can't relate to anything else. And so it's COVID the last 15 months has kept me in this room overlooking the water. And I tried to think of something I could do to bring people together. And that's why I created Getting to Know You. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Thank you
Glenn,
very
for doing
much.
Thank
that.
you, Glenn.
And
Thanks.
until
Thanks,
next
Glenn.
week.
Appreciate it.
Hope to
Great.
see
Thank
everybody
you.
soon.
Goodbye.
Yes. Great
See you.
seeing
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.